And welcome back to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. As I said a few minutes ago, we have Alladan from BTC Trading Cards, Bitcoin Trading Cards on the show. And these cards are fantastic. You know, they remind me of baseball cards when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I'd go buy a pack of baseball cards. I think they were like a nickel. They had a piece of gum in them back then. But having these baseball cards, I knew the baseball players, I knew the stats of the baseball players, I knew the personal comment it had, I knew all about these baseball players. So baseball cards were an educational card for baseball. And that's how I see Aladdin's cards, and I believe that was his whole purpose of the cards, was to make an educational card about Bitcoin that a father could open with his son and experience it and share Bitcoin with him and teach while being a collectible. So we're going to bring on Alladan. Alladan, thanks for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it. Am I right on the concept there?
You're spot on.
Okay. Great, because that's what I felt like. You know, I was looking through the cards. I opened my first packs earlier this week that I had received somewhere, and I was looking at them. I kept going, well, gosh, these are like financial cards about finance and stuff. And I said, no, these are all about Bitcoin, which makes sense since they're BTC trading cards, but the workmanship and the quality of your art, and it could be enjoyed by kids, but collected by collectors, just like baseball cards could be. You do a quality job on that. Tell us real quick about, just brief, because we're going to go into a lot in a few minutes, but right up front here, how'd you come up with this concept for doing trading cards for Bitcoin?
So a lot of it came down to so many failures of trying to orange pill friends and family. And a lot of it is we rant a lot as Bitcoiners and get really passionate when we're trying to explain Bitcoin to people. And I notice if you give people the power to start to learn from themselves without shoving it down their throat, they're a lot more interested in diving into Bitcoin. And the rabbit hole that Bitcoin brings you to is pretty massive. So I needed to come up with something that would empower the individual to be able to learn on their own. But I did notice that getting people to read an entire book was really difficult. The time preference, I've got two teenagers myself, and with the way that social media is kind of taken over and everything being little 30-second snippets, it's really hard to capture someone's attention long enough to get them to take on a new thought process. So these trading cards were an idea that I came up with on having a way to be able to start to drop these little snippets of information to people and get them interested and possibly learning more about Bitcoin, but meeting them at their own level with the little bit of time preference that they had. So that's really where this came from, is finding a way to explain Bitcoin without having to talk about it.
Oh, the cards are very informative. If a kid's sitting there reading cards, I don't see how the kid couldn't learn about Bitcoin from reading the cards, or an adult. So did you have a background in art? I mean, the art on these cards are fantastic, and I know you don't do them all, so I'm sure you're finding artists all the time. Or did you have a background in printing, or did you work for a baseball trading card company before? What is your background in this? How did this happen?
Yeah, background in art. So in high school, I had a bunch of issues, and the school, very long story, but make it simple, I was able to just spend most of my childhood drawing and sketching and painting, and just that's where most of my studies went into. So yeah, a long self-taught background in art that got me fired up for all of this. But in the printing and everything, not really. That's why when I started this project, I spent about 4 years diving in and studying everything there was to know about printing, trading cards, everything in this industry that I could possibly know before I dropped out with this. Because when it comes to trading cards, it's not like any other print. This is one that you have to take incredibly serious when you're dealing with a collectible. there's not a whole lot of room for error. And if there is error, it better be a little one. And then that makes those cards a little more scarce and a little more collectible. So hopefully if there are errors, which they do happen, we can only do so much to stop that. But making minimal errors as much as possible is the most important part in doing this. But yeah, very little background in the trading card industry other than just collecting when I was a kid. Even more than baseball cards, I was actually into Marvel comic cards, and mainly because of the artwork that came with the Marvel comic cards, and that inspired me quite a bit. So I definitely dove in as deep as I could and spent 4 years on this project, built in 2 bear markets to make sure I had it down as solid as possible before I launched this baby.
Well, you seem to be on the right track, that's for sure. I saw you go from last year out at the Pacific Festival, a table with a few people coming by in conversations, and you could stand there and talk at the table quite a while, to Bitcoin in Miami, conference in Miami, where you were just slammed with people at your booth purchasing packs of cards and buying them. And the same thing in Pacific last week. You even have Telegram groups have popped up, Twitter groups have popped up where people spend their time talking about your cards and trading cards with each other. So you definitely have a vibrant community going. And we really look forward to having you at BitBlock Boom this year during the happening. For those who out there who watch this show regularly, you know I run the BitBlock Boom conference, which is in Dallas this year, and Alladan's going to be one of our key people there. Hey, Alladan, where did this handle come from, Alladan? What's the scoop with that? We were talking about that earlier. How'd you come up with this handle, Alladan?
Well, to dox myself, that's my actual name.
I had no idea. I figured that was a handle. I didn't know that was your real name. Well, you doxed yourself now, but there's probably still a lot of Alladins out there. They're going to have a hard time figuring out who you are. So we were talking about that. That's funny, before the show started. So how did you find out about Bitcoin?
So I heard about Bitcoin like a lot of people very early on and missed my window, but it came back to me at the right time around 2016. I actually had another trading card business that I was running at that time, and that was in the cannabis industry. That project was specifically to help small mom and pop farmers get established and get branded to compete against the massive companies coming in and taking over the industry in California. So 2016, my kids were around 7 and 9 years old, and I definitely didn't want to continue in that industry because I just didn't have a whole lot of hope for it. And a lot of what I draw from being red pilled at a really early age is hope that we can have some kind of a fix, some kind of a change eventually happen in society to be able to fix mainly the broken monetary system. But I didn't have a whole lot of hope for that until I found Bitcoin. And it took me about a week and a half to just every single day studying everything I could about Bitcoin. Found Tone Vase and some really great people in the space that really talked my language. And I was hooked. Just couldn't think of anything else. And it couldn't happen in a more perfect time because I was ready to ditch the trading cards that I was working in and get away from the cannabis industry altogether, especially get my kids to a better situation out of the small community we were living in. And so I was able to move my family out of town into a new area. And I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. So at that point, it was, how do I work in Bitcoin for the rest of my life? And what's the biggest need in Bitcoin that someone that's not super technical can do? And that was trying to utilize my pulse on the people that I feel I have growing up in a small community and just knowing so many people in my life. So I didn't really think that the trading cards were going to be the thing, but I definitely knew there was going to be something that I had to do to help Bitcoin adoption and help more people understand the power of Bitcoin.
Well, you know, that's a funny, not a funny story, but a common story, is people go down that Bitcoin rabbit hole like Alice in Wonderland, and once they do, they go down so deep they want to start working in Bitcoin. I sold my businesses to do this full time and BitBlock Boom full time. Same thing. I hear it all the time. People go, I want to work in Bitcoin. I don't want to do this. I want to quit my job and work in Bitcoin. And that's what they do. Very common story. And we'll be right back after this word from our sponsor for more from Alladan with BTC cards. Stay tuned.